Okay, it's 10:30. We'll open the meeting. And the first order of business would be the approval of the agenda approval, item number 1 on the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. We have public comment. No, we have closed session report from our attorney, Jim.
The board did meet in closed session with its legal counsel and authorized settlement of an eminent domain action against Williams Portfolio 2. That's in the Rivers EIP. Other agenda items on the closed session agenda were dropped from the agenda. So.
Okay. Public comment on matters not on the agenda. We have Joe Godin. I believe that's right. Did I pronounce that correctly?
No, but that's okay. I'm used to that. My name is Joe Gaden. I'm a resident of Southport. I can't be here next month when you're going to be discussing your final decision on the levy fix, but I wanted to provide some input. I know most of you, and I have a lot of friends that are going to be impacted by this. No matter what decision you make, you're going to have an impact on some of our neighbors down there. Whether it's a slurry wall, there's a construction project next door to somebody's house, or the setback that's going to have a greater impact on those homes. The only thing that I know is you have a tough decision to make, and that's the first one. It's how do you get to fix this, and that's engineering and financing are the two major considerations, and the sources of that financing. The second one is a more difficult one, and the one I really was here to urge, no matter which way you go. Some of the people that own those houses down there have been there their whole lives. They've inherited the property from their parents. I would hope that in the appraisal process that you're able to grant consideration to some facts like waterfront property and those kinds of considerations that are going to come into play. And hopefully we'll all be able to settle this out in a way that has the greatest good for the greater public good. That is without a doubt the challenge to you, is figuring that out and doing it in a manner that creates a beneficial impact for the community. So I just want to say that because I won't be here to be able to analyze and discuss what you're going to do next month. But I trust you and my neighbors, quite frankly, to come to a resolution that is for the greater public good. Thank you.
Thank you. Grant Derry.
Good morning. My name is Grant Deary. I'm with NorCal Beverage Company here in West Sacramento and former chair of the WSAFCA Chamber and active chamber board member. And I actually chair the Economic Development Government Affairs Forum that we conduct monthly. We had the fortunate presence of Michael Passett yesterday in our meeting to discuss and give us an update of the flood control projects going on, the strengthening the levee in the spirit of 200-year floodplain goal. And we heard about the completion of the CHP and Rivers project and the ribbon cutting last month, 2 major milestones. So we'd like to take our hats off to that. I think it's a great accomplishment. Great to hear about the financial support from the state and the cooperation of the federal government. We recognized yesterday again that how fortunate we are to have the financial leverage of the state and federal government to help us finance this all-important project that you guys are undertaking. On behalf of the Chamber, we obviously believe, from a business perspective, the Chamber is the flood protection is vital to West Sacramento in terms of business and the residents for the overall good of the community and the business climate in general, especially considering the fragile economic situation we're all in here. I think it's imperative that we do everything we can to see that these projects move forward so that this economy can grow and everybody, the community, the business community, the citizens can thrive in a growing community of West Sacramento. We understand that the Southport levee must be completed in order to show enough progress from FEMA and the remapping processes taking place. I want to congratulate the city electeds, Michael, Bill Panos, and some members of our chamber who have gone back and lobbied on behalf of this important project back in Washington, D.C. It's clear that the political influence is well represented for such a small community such as West Sacramento, and I think it's paying major dividends. So the chamber supports the Southport project and the board's tough decisions you have made already and will continue to make in the coming months. We understand the Flood Control Agency has been doing everything possible to work through our solutions to Southport residents to save their properties. And I can't begin to speak on behalf of some of the residents who will be displaced. I can just imagine the emotional tugs and the legacy of generations of having a home and being disrupted and being displaced as a result of some of the levee work that's going to take place. And I'd also echo Joe Gayton's comments that what I heard yesterday, I think, strengthens my resolve that this board and the city are doing and will do everything possible to mitigate the disruption of those that are going to be displaced with their homes. And I felt even more confident about that yesterday. And in addition, for our own business interests, we are trying to develop a 43-acre parcel in Southport, so it's vitally important for our business interests that we move forward on strengthening the levees and moving toward the flood plain of 200 years. So the chamber here, again, we support your efforts, and we are here to do everything we can to continue that effort in every way possible to help move the process forward. So thank you very much.
Wilson, Wyatt.
Morning, Chairman Dent and members of the board. I've appeared before you before. I'm Wilson Wyatt. I'm an attorney representing CCON. I submitted a letter this morning, which I think you have copies of, and most of the comments in that letter have to do with item 8 on your agenda today, which is the progress report, and I'd like to speak on that item also. But the reason I'm speaking under public comment is that we filed a Public Records Act request, and we've gotten, working through Mr. Nevis and Mr. Bissett, we've gotten a substantial amount of material. And a part of my letter is a request to the board to ask you to direct staff to meet with us to discuss the design, the data, the issues that have to do with the levee improvements that will be in segment F. And I spoke with Mr. Bissett before the meeting and Mr. Nevis, and they both indicated that staff is ready and willing to meet with us. We'll pick some dates, and hopefully sooner rather than later we'll be able to sit down and go over the materials that we've received. So I'd like to ask that you coordinate with staff and make sure that they meet with us. Thank you very much.
Val Topping Bird.
Morning, Chairman Dent, members of the commission. It's good to see you this morning. I'm a property owner here in West Sacramento, and one of the important issues for us here in the community is flood protection, and what you are all have charged to do in West Sacramento is to protect the properties that we have here in the community. I know it's a very difficult decision that you have to make. It's not easy, particularly when you're have the need to take property that people aren't necessarily interested in selling. I think you have lots of mechanisms available to you to make people whole, to put them in a position where they're at least as well off as they have been, if not better off. I'm familiar with those mechanisms, and I encourage you to explore the full range of opportunities to do that for folks who will be affected by the efforts you make. But please don't hesitate in your commitment to make the kinds of improvements that the community needs to protect the huge amount of property that we have available in the community, or or at risk in the community. So I encourage you to continue along that effort. Thank you so much.
Tim McDonald.
My name is Kim McDonald, and I live in one of the homes destined to be demolished on South River Road, but also one of several who would have enough land to rebuild if the fix-in-place option is used. That statistic was not mentioned in the last presentation. Originally, we were told that a fix-in-place repair was structurally unfeasible in our area. This has proven to be incorrect. Now we are being told it would be the financial death of the whole levee project if the city were to be forced to do this more expensive plan. A shallower wall is to be used in other areas, and a deep wall has already been used in an earlier fix. Today is my day to be selfish and think of myself, not the people who think everything should be provided to them by the government at the expense of those of us who have planned ahead. Last month, WSAFCA board was presented with bookend plans to make you believe that if you saved 8 homes, it would make the project beyond the city's ability to implement. I find it hard to accept that these plans are totally unbiased. The entity which may benefit most from this project is the one in charge of distributing these results and paying the monies to the people who are giving the presentations to the board. Their professionals are giving an unlimited amount of time while I've put under pressure with a time constraint. I don't expect everyone to be perfect, but I believe errors may go the way of favoring the manager's preferred plans. The preferred plan may show everything happening on time and with no expensive surprises, while the plan that is less desirable may include the worst-case scenarios as part of the budget. I'll assume that this board doesn't believe that if you come up short of money at the checkout line, someone else should be made to pay the difference. The government has rewarded people and businesses that operate on a budget beyond their means. The government should be forced to live within its means and not rely on some other agency giving them free money. WSAFCA is urging you to choose a plan based on getting free money. Money provided by other government agencies, but this free money is conditionally attached to projects that increase and greatly impact the property owners while not guaranteed greater flood protection. We do not live in an area that has flash floods. High water events are days in the making and can be prepared for. Residents who choose to live in this area need to be educated on how to prepare to best survive such an event. Other residents should not be expected to give up what we have to make them think they are 100% safe. People who live in a floodplain should be required to pay flood insurance that reflects their risk. People who live in the hurricane coast build their homes to a special set of specifications. People who live in the pine forests clear their fire perimeter. People who live in Tornado Alley have a safe room. I have chosen to live in an area with no flash flooding, no rattlesnakes, plentiful water, minimal fire damage, and even less earthquake and tsunami risk. And I am close to hospitals, entertainment, shopping, and most important, family. I live in a home that the city will never allow to be rebuilt, even though it has been built in a way to greatly increase the integrity of the adjoining levees at the homeowner's expense. I have an unobstructed view in a semi-rural neighborhood with the perfect neighbors, a home that is priceless because there are no parcels left in this area that fit the above description. I have always been one to give a helping hand, but I will fight being forced to let West Sacramento take my property by crying flood protection, while planning to use the extra land it takes to finance the levee project and improve their quality of recreation areas for later development projects. I hope to put up a fight that will prove I have a right to keep what I legally own if it's not being used for safety. If you want me to stop, I will. I'll give you a copy of this. The city is saying, for the sake of the many, we few must give up our passé way of life, thus allowing the city to implement the plan that they can afford now. I see this as skewing the safety definition of eminent domain to acquire even more riverfront property at a deep discount. Why is it the government allowed to predict with unproven certainty an impending disaster that is meant to scare the easily led into giving the city the power to needlessly demolish our homes? Mother Nature is everywhere, and each person must be responsible for the choices they make when they choose where to live. When talking to WSAFCA managers, I am continually being told it's not our fault. We're only following the government's orders in order to make West Sacramento West Sacramento safety and better for the majority of the people. To me, this is a slogan of infamy that's been used too many times in the past. This is not supposed to be a country where the government is allowed to get rid of a minor population and take their property by scaring the people into believing it has to be done. Thank you.
Victoria Yakamona. I never pronounce your last name right. Roslyn, you already spoke, yeah. Well, she can speak on 8 now. Okay, the approval of June the 14th minutes.
Move it. Oh, I wasn't here, I'm sorry.
Been moved and seconded that the approval be for the minutes. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it.
Abstain. I was not here.
Review monthly year-to-date revenue and expenses.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. This cash flow report summarizes the expenditures and revenues for the month of May 2012. On the receivable side, the second installment of the flood assessment arrived in the amount of approximately $1.68 million, and we also had $422,000 of state fund participation in design and construction. On the payable side, there were approximately $955,000 of expenditures, the majority of which occurred in the Southport EIP project to a tune of $415,000, and the CHP project, $220,000, which the majority of which was the last payment on the Tykert contract. The agency's ending cash position at the end of May stands at $14.1 million. In the expense by vendor report, there is a $90,000 credit, and that represents a couple of checks that were drawn for some escrows that turned out to be delayed, so the checks were destroyed and the account credited. Currently, finance is closing out the books for the fiscal year ending 2012, and we should have some summary reports for you next month. That ends the report for the month of May.
Thank you. Questions? Item number 5, consideration of determining the flood control assessment for fiscal year 2012 and 13.
Good morning, President Denton and members of the board. Michael Bissett, City's Flood Protection Manager. This item is, the purpose of this item is for consideration of determining flood control assessments for fiscal year 12 and 13. And also, so we have 2 resolutions for this item. Resolution 120701, and that's for setting the assessment for those fiscal years. And Resolution 120702, and that's a requirement of the county for their process to collect those charges on the secured tax roll and deliver those to this agency. So those are what those 2 items are. The first item is for the assessment. And as we have done so for the past several years, staff is recommending a 2% increase. It's based on the reasoning is for the assessment that was passed in 2007 was in consideration of a $400 million total project cost. Since 2007, we have done a lot more analysis of our system. We completed our alternatives analysis report, and we've based a new project cost at around $460 million. So it's an increase from when the original assessment was passed in 2007. Therefore, that is the justification for the full 2% increase. And that concludes my presentation for this item.
I would move that we approve Resolution 120701 and Resolution 120702, authorizing Yolo County to charge special assessments.
Yeah, I need a second now. Been moved and seconded that we approve the assessments. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, the ayes have it. Item number 6 on the agenda, consideration of approval of construction contract with Empire Landscaping to install a habitat restoration for the Rivers riparian mitigation site.
Okay, once again, Michael Bissett, Flood Protection Manager. This item, and actually the next item, item 7, these are both items that follow up the Rivers and CHP EIP projects, the levee improvement projects. These are from the resulting, the mitigation for those projects. So we went out and we've designed the mitigation project. This is for the Rivers riparian mitigation site. We issued bids. We received about 8 bids or so, 8 or 9 bids, and we got good prices. So the low bid from Empire Landscaping is about $170,000 less than engineer's estimate. We are going to manage this project in-house. I wanted to introduce Chris Sorosky. He's with city staff. He handles a lot of our landscaping projects throughout the city. Chris has been keeping a close eye on this one for us, and he's going to actively manage that out in the field. So we have a good price, and staff's recommendation is to award this contract and let us move forward with the construction for this project. That concludes my presentation.
Need a motion for
Yes, this is, and yeah, I bring the board's attention to the budget cost impact. The state will be funding this project at 90% cost level, same as the levee improvement project. So yes, thank you. Correct.
Second it.
moved and seconded that the item number 6 be approved. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 7, consideration of approval of a construction contract with Sierra View Landscape, Inc., doing business as Restoration Resources to perform tree mitigation at the CHP Academy.
Okay, once again, Michael Bissett, Flood Protection Manager. This project, this contract is to mitigate for the CHP EIP project. This one is a direct result of the PG&E pole relocations that had to occur as part of that project. We impacted existing trees within the CHP Academy site itself. This is a very small project in terms of dollars. It's right around $12,000. Chris Sorosky will also be managing this project in the field for us. And we got a good price. It was right pretty much at engineer's estimate. This project will not take long to complete, and we have been coordinating this project with the CHP Academy from inception to now. So they're well aware of it, and they're looking forward to us coming on and installing those trees and getting off their property. So staff's recommending that we move forward with this contract to Restoration Resources and approve the contract and allow us to move forward with construction. That concludes my presentation.
Comments?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the contract on item number 7 be approved. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 8, West Sacramento Area Flood Control Association project updates.
I think the public comments,
I got two speakers there, yeah. Victoria?
Thank you, President Denton and members of the board, for the opportunity to speak. The first matter that I'd like to present was I did, in fact, submit a letter which actually reiterated some of the things I had presented at the last board meeting. And this letter was emailed to the Reclamation District 900, and I'm not sure if you received it or not. So I'm going to resubmit it at this time so that you do have a copy. And then again, it basically goes over the issue of the cutoff wall for segment F, and that it's a justification for the cutoff wall in segment F, and our concern about our home and our desires to retain our home, which is a heritage home. The other things I'd like to request at this time for clarification of the reasons why apparently the cutoff wall might be unfeasible based on an engineering basis was the fact that when I did attend the workshop on Tuesday night for segment B, it was apparent that Blackburn Consulting did in fact have a plan and profile figure for segment B. I'd like to get those plans and profiles, which includes historic data on the core samples and different methods of obtaining the core samples historically over a long period of time, and it also includes other engineering companies besides the contemporary Blackburn contract. And I'd like to have those plans and profiles for segment F and also for segment G. Segment G we had historically farmed segment G since the mid-1940s. So having lived there for so long, and of course the cutoff wall is planned for segment G, I'd like to have those profiles for that area as well as ours. I'd also like to have the Blackburn plan and profiles for the Rivers project, where the cutoff wall is in fact 130 feet deep. And apparently the 130 feet is measured by different qualifications, whether or not the levee crown has been shaved down, or you're actually measuring that 130 feet from sea level, which is approximately 20 feet above sea level. So those three profiles, if you could possibly provide them to me, I did not find them in any of the data that have been received so far. This will greatly help me understand why, on an engineering basis, a cutoff wall is unfeasible. Also, in this flood protection progress report, which hasn't been presented yet, I did notice that there's a concern about the fill dirt should the setback levy be approved. And that fill dirt is a critical matter, whether or not this engineeringly could also be possible, because the fill dirt apparently isn't available. There are some areas on segment F, including our farm, that it is stippled in with possible sources of fill dirt. And of course, I want to know how you intend to obtain that fill dirt from us. And then lastly, there is included in that progress report some reference to using the village parkway, the future village parkway, to access our properties. And I want to know how you're going to obtain access to our land on the village parkway easement, and how you're going to compensate us in case you do need that roadway. All right, thank you.
Wilson Wyatt?
Chairman Denton and members of the board, Wilson Wenigan representing CCON. I submitted a letter. I want to make sure that the letter is a part of this item discussion as well as my comments under public comments. We looked at the attachment to the agenda that is item 7, which is the progress report. And I set forth in my letter some of our concerns, which I think are probably should be and probably are your concerns as well. And I wanted to just briefly highlight those. Obviously, you're going to look at that and staff is going to look at it also. But our first concern is something that Ms. Yamamoto just mentioned, and that is the borrow material that's going to be necessary for these fixes. You've decided on a fix in most of the segments that is that requires the most borrow material of any of the possible alternative selections. And our consultants are certainly not experts in the area, but they remain somewhat skeptical as to whether there's enough borrow material available even, and if it is available, the environmental impacts from moving that borrow material are going to be enormous. And I understand that the EIS-EIR, the administrative draft, is being prepared now. I assume the draft EIS-EIR will be out soon. But those impacts are going to have to be looked at very carefully, and I'm sure you will. Our basic concern, I think, is that the necessity for an enormous amount of borrow material may be something you haven't looked at initially as you went through and decided on appropriate alternatives for the various segments. And that's something which is new information, which if the need for borrow material and the availability is as big a problem as our engineers think it is, it may indicate that you need to rethink the alternatives in some of these segments, including segment F, where it may turn out that the adjacent levee is, it's certainly going to require less borrow material. So as this goes forward, I'm suggesting to you now that this is new information, which certainly supports the request that I made at the last board meeting, that you reconsider your determination as the setback levee being the preferred alternative in segment F. Thanks very much.
Informational items.
Yeah, I'm going to go through the project update.
Okay.
Okay, wanted to start with the wrap up of the rivers and CHP projects. So our construction manager has delivered draft construction documentation reports. Those are being reviewed internally with my staff and our consultants, and we're looking forward to closing out these projects. We're still getting some data, acquiring data from our contractors, and the whole team has to feed information into these closeout documentation reports. And these are the reports that will ultimately be used to certify these levee improvements. So it's critical that we do these documentation properly. And once we've internally reviewed them and completed them, we'll send drafts to our partner agencies, the Army Corps and the state, and we'll get their comments, and then we'll wrap up these projects. So we are doing that, and we're moving forward, so I'll keep you updated on the progress of those items there. On the Southport Sacramento River EIP, we held a public meeting Tuesday evening with the Segment B property owners to basically present the same information that was presented to this board last month. We remain committed to not presenting information to the public before it becomes, or it's brought to this board. So what we did was we presented the same information but with a lot more detail behind it so that we could answer property owner questions. And we had our full team there of our civil designers, our geotechs. We had MBK engineers, and then my staff were there to handle other questions as well. So it was I think it was a positive meeting, and that was held on Tuesday. ICF is in the process of working on the environmental documentation for the project. They are working closely with the Army Corps to ensure that we're following their standards. So there's a lot of back and forth going on with the Army Corps. So the ICF's working on the second admin draft. One of the items that they're looking for information on from our design team is on the borrow, which is what was just mentioned. Borrow is a concern for this project in terms of identifying the proper areas, the most cost-effective areas, and the most suitable areas from a geotechnical standpoint for this borrow. We have multiple sites, both within the city, nearby, and then there's another site south of the city limits that they have approximately 1.5 million cubic yards of material that they want to give to West Sacramento. We just have to acquire it and pay for the transport of it. So we're calculating that out now. So there's suitable amounts of borrow in the area, and we're just in the process of determining the most cost-effective sources so that we can keep our costs down. We have a meeting next week to run through HDR's numbers on their calculations for the various sites, and we'll be making some selections to be analyzed within the environmental document. So that's kind of ongoing work there. We remain, we keep in contact with the utility companies. We're at the point now where we really need them to become engaged with our project so we could start planning for the proper utility relocations. As this board probably remembers, that was a critical feature at the CHP Academy site, relocating those PG&E pole lines. It caused some delay to that project, and we want to get ahead of the curve this time around. So we're in that process. Paul Dirkson's moving forward on real estate services. He's doing a fine job. He issued the request for qualifications for appraisal, negotiation, and relocation services. He got responses from 6 firms, and they're currently reviewing those statement of qualifications. Ken is involved in that process. And I think they're going to be shortlisting and then interviewing some firms. So we'll be taking some recommendations back to the board for those services in the near future. As far as engineering design goes, last month, I wasn't here last month, but the team presented the findings, basically the bookended alternatives of what we have available to us to correct the deficiencies in segment B. We went through some of the engineering features of those alternatives, and then the costs for those projects, the cost sharing for those projects, and just to lay the groundwork of where we see things going. Now HDR and their team are busy working on analyzing the other alternatives that may be available to us as we move forward. So that is the main focus of what they're working on right now. This board has directed our team to really tighten the screws on our analysis as much as possible due to the potential impacts to the homes out there, and that's what we're doing. And we're also available, as always, to meet with property owners whenever they would like to keep presenting the information. I made a commitment at the public meeting to meet with the property owner's geotechnical engineer at the right time when we have information available. So we'll sit down with him in the future and go over that information. So we're making every attempt to be as transparent as possible in this process, and that's the way this board has directed us to move forward. So that's what we're doing. Like I said, borrow identification is one of the key aspects we're working on now. The Village Parkway alignment is another key aspect. We're going to be working with a lot of the landowners in the very near future because HDR is very close to having an alignment, at least a draft alignment that we can use for talking purposes. We're trying to work with the large landowners as they plan their developments. They can help us and we can help them if we work together on the alignment of this, this future roadway. As you know, that roadway is going to serve, it's a project feature for the Southport EIP because South River Road will be going away as part of this project. Village Parkway will be constructed as part of this project to replace South River Road, and we'll get state cost share in doing so. So that's going to be a positive aspect of the project, and that's one of the critical features that we're working on. So the timing of the VE study is it's moving forward rapidly. HDR, and one aspect I wanted to bring to the board's attention is all our team's analysis is being run through the Board of Senior Consultants so that we get their concurrence on our findings. So every step in the way in this VE study, the board is overseeing that information and providing their feedback to our team. So some of the alternatives that are being currently analyzed are the relief well feasibility alternative. That's going to be going with a technical memo to the Board of Senior Consultants on July 20th. We're asking them to really turn around their reviews of each and every work product that we send to them so that we can move this process forward. We have draft seepage modeling results for partially penetrating walls and narrow berms going to the Board of Senior Consultants at the end of this month. So HDR has done a fine job of identifying the work products that are moving forward, the timelines for them to be brought to the Board of Senior Consultants, and the timelines really for them to get back to us with their reviews and comments. Ideally, we want to take our findings to the board in August. Our schedule is showing that we'll have our results, we'll have them internal technical review. HDR has to do quality assurance, quality control on all their work products before they're even released to the Board of Senior Consultants. So a lot of those reviews will be taking place. The products will go to the board, they'll come back to us, we'll complete our analysis, and we're hoping to have our findings by the end of this month so that I can prepare our staff reports to the board and make staff recommendations on the best method to move forward. So that's what we're working hard to do. If for some reason that schedule slips, we'll just provide an update to the board in August and we'll move it to September, but we're hoping that that doesn't happen because it has a cascading effect. When you slip and you miss a milestone, it impacts other work products as we move forward. So our team is working very diligently on these items. So that's for the Southport project. Wanted to update the board. We did receive additional monies from the state under our design funding agreement, $4.5 million. I think that may have been reported last month, but that was excellent. So, and that came in right before the state went into their blackout period. They were able to process that payment for West Sacramento. They were able to issue a check. They're really working as partners for us. And what I failed to mention earlier, when we had the ribbon cutting ceremony for CHP in the Rivers, not only do we use that event to signify our success at moving projects forward, but we used it as a team building exercise because we wanted to demonstrate to the state and the Corps that they're integral in our success. Their success, our success, it's all together. We can't do it without them, and they certainly couldn't do it without us. So we wanted to highlight that fact, and Lucy and her team did a wonderful job of putting the event together. And the puzzle piece at the end, I don't know if you guys saw that on the news, but it really showed the partnership that we have. We had Colonel Leedy speak and Bill Edgar with the Central Valley Board, and we had DWR there. So it turned out into a really nice event. So the state, our partners, our state and federal partners know that we appreciate everything that they do for us, and it really helps our process move forward in a positive way. One of the items I wanted to update the board on is the general reevaluation report we have underway. I've reported to the board that headquarters has issued a new I don't want to call it guidance because there's really not much guidance behind it, but a new ruling of a 3x3x3 rule, which pretty much caps studies to 3 years, $3 million, and limited amount of analysis required, as opposed to the way that they did business prior. So some of the frustrations that myself and our team have had is that the headquarters did not issue guidance to their districts and division offices. They basically said, you know, implement this idea and move forward. So the staffs have been having a very difficult time understanding how to move forward. And that's been frustrating for them, and it's been frustrating for us to see things sort of stagnate, and there's really, it didn't appear that there was light at the end of the tunnel. So we decided that we wanted to meet with the colonel, go into their project review board, and we did that on Tuesday. And we really wanted to send a strong message to the colonel and his team that, a reminder that we're their partners. We need to be in on the process of helping to develop this policy and move it forward. I believe that message was heard loud and clear. Actually, they reached out to us, and we had a meeting the late afternoon before the PRB meeting the following day, where their team came in, they met with us, they sort of explained what they were doing behind closed doors to figure things out on their own. And they, in my opinion, they're developing an aggressive approach to move forward, absent the guidance from headquarters. They're basically saying, hey, this is our vision for what headquarters' intent was. We're going to rescope these studies in the best way that we think, and we're going to move forward. And I like that approach. It's aggressive. Now, there is risk involved with it because you could potentially make the wrong assumptions of what headquarters was looking for. But the feedback that they're getting initially is, from headquarters is, yes, move forward. Let us check in every once in a while on how you're rescoping these studies, but move quickly. And they have given them deadlines that they have to meet, and they're favorable for us. They're trying to deliver a chief's report at the end of 2013. It's more likely going to be in early 2014, but that's very positive for us. As you know, our 221 credit for the Southport project is hinged to the GRR process, and we made that very clear at PRB also, that, you know, we're moving forward quickly. They need to keep up with us, and we need to deliver this chief report in a timely manner so that it doesn't impact our construction schedule. So it's looking favorable at this point in time. We are going to be engaged in a much more aggressive manner with the Corps staff in the very near future and into the future on this process. So that was very favorable news for us also. So I'll keep the board apprised, but I feel the study's in a much better place now than it was 2 or 3 months ago, but we got to keep a close eye on it to move it forward. On the Sac Bank setback levy project, I'm switching gears now. You know, that project's in construction. Ken Jameson of our team is keeping a close eye on that project. You know, the Corps is the lead agency, but we are the recipients of that project, so we're keeping a very close eye on it. And they're scheduled to complete the project later this year, and I'll continue to provide updates on that project as well. 2 other items, and then I'll close out. The Central Valley Flood Protection Plan has been approved by the Central Valley Board. It was approved on June 29th, so that was been a very exhaustive process for the state, both DWR and the Central Valley Board staff. What that means for us is, now that the plan is approved, what's going to roll out in the near term are regional planning efforts. And DWR has zoned out the Central Valley into 9 regions. We're assigned in the lower Sacramento region, and that includes ourselves and SAFCA, City of Sacramento, Sac County, Yolo County and some of the cities within Yolo County. And we're coordinating with those agencies now because there has to be one lead agency for that planning effort. It's not that the lead agency dictates how everything is going to go, but the state wants one lead agency to work with all the partners. So we are trying to take the lead on that position. So we've reached out to WSAFCA and Yolo County, and as of right now, it seems favorable that we may be put in that position. So we should hear from DWR. We got some draft guidelines on that planning effort. We should be, I was just informed from the state that they're going to hold a series of meetings at the end of this month or early August to start rolling out this process. So that's moving forward, so that's positive for us. And you know, the closer we can be to that process, the better we can look out for our interests. So that's why we want to participate in that. And lastly, on FEMA remapping, Congress has recently just passed a 5-year extension for the National Flood Insurance Program, NFIP. So that's good news because they had been doing in recent, I guess, years now, is doing short-term extensions of the NFIP, 6 months, 3 months, 9 months, just kind of kicking the can down the road. They were trying to include a lot of components to the NFIP, and they were having difficulties doing that. They did pass the 5-year extension. There was one area there was some language in the NFIP that could have been very problematic to communities like ours. There was a residual risk component in that language. That would have required basically any community that has residual risk, that lives behind or that is behind levees or behind other structures like dams, even if they're certified, FEMA was looking to say that there's risk there, and we all know that living behind levees, there's always risk, but right now flood insurance is not mandated, unless you get decertified and put into the floodplain. This component, this residual risk component, was just going to make insurance mandatory regardless of the condition of your flood protection system. So that was very problematic. We got engaged very quickly on that with both Yolo County and with our federal lobbyists. Fortunately, that language was taken out, so it's not in the recently passed NFIP. So that's good news. The other good news is that now that the 5-year extension has been approved, FEMA is going to now start looking at doing regulation changes to the current flood zones of AR and A99. They want to look to hopefully apply a lot of the suggestions that we have been working with them on to rewrite how you can qualify for those flood zones. So they're going to be in that process soon. We're going to be feeding a lot of information into that process, which they request. So I'll keep you posted as that moves forward also. So that concludes the updates.
On the South River Pump Station, have you heard anything new on that?
Yeah, they issued their environmental document, and as part of our review of that document, we had looked, there was an area of concern for us. Now, keep in mind, City of West Sacramento is a partner agency of SRCSD. We're part of that district now. So we were very sensitive how we wanted to transmit our comments. So we worked with their lead person who had issued the document. We were concerned about their borrow source. They were going to take borrow adjacent to the levee near the pump station. In our opinion, it seemed like they were going a little too close to the levee and maybe at a depth a little too deep. So we sort of asked the questions. We said, we'd like to see the analysis that you did to show that you're not going to be impacting the levee in that area. They're working on that right now. So I think we asked the right questions. They're asking their technical experts for the documentation So that's what happened in that area.
Thank you. Any comments, Bill?
Mike, one question.
Sure.
On the recently approved Central Valley Flood Plan, is there any specifics in that plan that dictate our projects as to what we're building in Southport or what?
No, there's not. There's really not specifics in the plan right now. The specifics are going to come from the regional planning efforts. Yep. That's what's going to feed the projects in and provide DWR with the information that they need. Now, the good part of the plan for us is they really highlight urban areas that essentially 80% of the risk to the Central Valley is from the urban areas. So we're going to be looking to, or the state will be looking to funnel as much of the available bond monies that they have to buy down that risk, so to improve levees, protecting urban areas. So I think that's a good thing for us. In the more rural areas, they're going to need to preserve some monies to go out and make improvements in those areas also. So we're going to help formulate that planning effort. Okay.
Informational items.
I have 2 informational items. So MBK, who is our program manager, who, as you know, helped guide us through this difficult process of regulatory environment and permitting and engineering design and most importantly in the funding of these projects. Their contract is getting close to the end of the available budget, and we're going to be taking a new contract to, it's time for a new contract for MBK engineers. So I am in the process of working with MBK on that. I'm going to be taking the new contract to the City Council next week. I'll be providing the council with an update on the flood protection program, and then I'll be taking that contract to this board in August. So I wanted to give you a heads up on that. And then lastly, yesterday, Bill Panos and I, Bill Panos, the Public Works Director, we briefed the new city manager, Martin Tuttle. He's taken over starting today, I believe, is his first day. So we briefed him on the flood protection program. He's kind of drinking from you know, a lot. He's getting a lot of information. I forget what the phrase is, but he's getting a lot of information thrown at him from all the various departments here in the city. So we had to give him a 30,000-foot view of everything we're working on, and then we'll slowly start giving him more and more detail as we move forward. But it was a good meeting. Ken got to meet him for the first time, and vice versa. So we'll be looking forward to working with Marty in the near future. So I just wanted to inform the board that the new city manager is on board and he's been briefed.
One quick question. Mike, with this MBK new contract, did we go out to bid with that, or did we use their expertise from the past?
Yeah, no, we did not go to bid. We've had MBK under contract since 2006.
Right.
They've been an integral team member for the city they really helped educate myself and our leadership on how to do these projects and move them forward. So they are so embedded into every detail of our program that our recommendation is to just move forward with MBK.
Okay, it'll be interesting to see what the price of that is.
Yep.
When it comes to us then.
The interesting part of MBK's contract is the majority of it is funded through the state. Right. So a lot of their work the majority of their work is on these EIP projects. Mm-hmm. And you know, MBK was the one who were able to get us the 90% cost share for our entire north area plan. And I'll be able to present a lot of the details of why they're really the experts in this field and why it's really a good idea for us to move forward with them.
Okay. Meeting's adjourned then.